Hey everyone, Daniel here. So today I'm super excited. So I came in Saint-Adèle to Fat Bike, and today I want to make this really cool video for you guys called the 7 misconceptions about fat biking. So I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get right into it. Fat biking has become increasingly popular over the years, and people that do try it realize how fun it is, and it can be. But like any new sports, I had some misconceptions without even realizing it. So in this video, I would like to talk to you guys about 7 misconceptions that I had about fat biking, or 7 misconceptions that I heard about fat biking. So let's dive right in. So the first misconception about fat biking is fat bikes are totally different than mountain bikes. Now, that's completely false. There's a few differences between a mountain bike and a fat bike, but essentially when it comes down to gears, brakes, frame, ergonomics, and all that stays the same. The only big difference, as you can see, is I have a wider tire. So fat bikes have 4-inch, 3 3/4 inch tires, or 4-inch all the way up to 5-inch tires. So which you have to have a wider suspension at the end of the day and a wider frame in the back to support the fat tire. But besides that, it's exactly the same thing as a mountain bike. It has disc brakes, it has a shifter. Some of them come with suspension. So you have 3 different types of fat bikes. So you have the rigid bike like this one, which doesn't have any suspension, neither in front, neither in the back. Then you have what we call hardtails. Basically, hardtails have no suspension in the front, but have a suspension in the back. And of course, you have dual suspension. So exactly like a mountain bike. So to some degree, it is a mountain bike. It's just a different type of mountain bike. So that's your typical misconception number 1. So the second misconception is around fat bikes are just for snow. Now, that's another misconception, as fat bikes are not only for snow. They're really good on sand as well, and you could pretty much ride them on any tapped surface. So again, we see them a lot on the snow itself, but the only reason for that is that it makes riding in the snow a lot cooler than with your regular mountain bike, or even like a road bike or a regular bicycle. So fat bikes are cool in the snow. But again, not just for the snow. Like I said, you could go on the beach and ride anything that's been compacted, single tracks, so flowy trails, all that. As long as it's been dammed, then you should be able to go with your fat bike. So that's the second misconception around fat bike. Now, the third misconception is about... Ouais, vous pouvez y aller, venez-vous-en, gênez-vous pas. So as you can see, fat bike, we get to share the trails. So I could ride my bike in the trail, and we have pedestrians and skiers. And
priority.
Yes, I do. Thank you. So, but it's really fun to all of us get to enjoy the trails, regardless of the sport that we're doing. So I thought that would be pretty cool. So the third misconception goes like, it says that basically you could ride your fat bike anywhere. That's completely false, okay? You cannot ride your trail bike anywhere you want. Yes, you could go in mountains and such, but in closed trails, usually you're not allowed to go in any damn ski trails. Usually those trails are reserved for ski and snowboards, so ski parks and all that. Usually you can't ride your fat bike in there. If you do happen to end up in a ski trail, easiest thing that could happen is one of the skiers will look at you quite bizarrely and let you know that you don't belong there. In a worst case scenario, you'll be caught by the park security and you will be asked and escorted outside the park. So basically, you're not allowed to go riding in ski parks. There is a few ski resorts that started creating fat bike trails specifically for us to go ride, but that's still something that's becoming increasingly popular, and it's still at the early stage. So there's not a lot of mountains that offer some fat bike trails, but the ones that do have some, you have specific trail outside of the ski area where you could actually ride your fat bike. So please be aware of that. You cannot ride a fat bike anywhere you want. Okay. Now, the fourth conception, it says that you could ride any time in any condition. Now, that's something also that's a misconception. I thought that too, but the truth is, you can't ride in any condition. Of course, you could go for, an easy peasy ride outside when it's raining or snowing or falling hail or any of that type of weather. That's fine, but it's not going to be very enjoyable, right? So things like when it's raining, it's really not recommended to go, first of all, in the trails when it's raining, as all the trails will become wet. And if you do happen to pass there with your bike, at the end of the day, what's going to happen, it is going to damage the trails more than anything else. So it is highly recommended that we do not go ride when it's raining. The other thing also not recommended for fat biking is whenever there's some snow. So like right now we have this little snow falling, that's fine. But once we hit that 4, 5, 6 inches of powder type snow like this, it is highly recommended not to go fat biking in those trails as well, as again, it is going to damage the trail. So what we do wait for is skiers or snowshoe practitioners to come in the trail and kind of dam the trail for us so we could actually pass in the trail. So no, you can't ride your fat bike in in all the conditions, in every conditions. That's pure misconception. So the fifth misconception I had around fat biking is that you could use your fat bike for commuting year-round. That too is a big misconception. There's a few reasons why you would not do that. For the simple reason that these bikes are made to be on damp surfaces. So groomed trails, either snow trails or sand trails or dirt trails, as long as they're groomed. Now, if you use your fat bike to commute, now what's going to happen is, first of all, it becomes very dangerous. So within like little cities and such, they don't de-ice as much as we would want, for one. So surfaces become very slippery, and you could start sliding all over the place as you're like riding your bike within traffic. So that becomes really dangerous. Of course, nothing is built in order for commuters to ride their bike all year round, right? So waving around in besides cars and between cars and all that, stopping, I mean, it makes the whole sport a lot more dangerous, to be honest. So that's why I wouldn't recommend commuting with your bike. Of course, if you want to go to the convenience store back and forth, that's fine. But like every day commuting 20, 25 kilometers or more back and forth to work is going to be quite a challenge. So I wouldn't recommend it. So the sixth misconception goes like this and says that all fat bikes are the same. Well, guess what? That too is a misconception. It is not true. Like any mountain bike, there's different types of bikes. There's different setup when it comes down to the components, that being the brakes, the disc pedals, gears, shifters, all those accessories, additional components. All those can be adapted to any type of bike. So again, there's not all fat bikes are the same way that mountain bikes are not all the same. Like I said previously, you have some that are hardtail, like this one, has absolutely no suspension. This is a rigid frame with no suspension in the front nor in the back. Then you have the hardtail that has suspension in the front, no suspension in the back, and of course you got dual suspension. And of course, like any other type of mountain bike, you have different grades and different material when it comes down to frames and components. So if your bike is in alloy, in metal, in carbon, all those things will affect the pricing, the quality of your bike, and the performance truly of your bike. So not all the fat bikes are the same. Okay. So the seventh and final misconception about fat biking says that fat bikes are super expensive. Now, let's clear something up. Yes, there is mountain bikes, fat bikes, there is bicycles that are very, very expensive, and we talk in the tens of thousands of dollars per bikes. But like anything else, there is also cheaper bikes. I have a good example here with me. This is a $500 fat bike, not a $5,000 fat bike. There are several reasons why I bought a $500 fat bike, but just to keep things simple, there's bikes of all sorts of price range. Now, what is it that's going to make the difference between the price range? Again, it comes down to accessories, components, materials. So carbon fiber will be a lot more expensive than alloy bikes, depending on the wheel. Like if you have these fat tires and you have studdable tires, they're pretty expensive. But again, if you're okay without studs, I mean, it's reasonable as far as pricing. So the pricing vary, like I said, anywhere from $500 to $5,000. That's going to be the price that you could expect to pay for a full fat bike, which, yeah, at the end of the day, the $5,000 bike is an expensive bike. But again, to get you started, you don't have to have a $5,000 bike. What you have to have is a bike where you feel comfortable to ride, and you could have some fun riding it and learn as you go. So if you have a $500 bike and you're becoming good and you want something better, then you could increase and change your bike from there and get better components, better accessories, and so on and so forth. So there you have it. So again, these were 7 misconceptions about fat biking. I'm sure there's probably a ton more. If you do have any misconceptions about fat biking that I have not discussed in this video, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what's your misconceptions around fat biking. And yeah, who knows, maybe until then, I will see you guys on the trail somewhere. So keep riding and have some fun out there and stay safe. Cheers.